And hang on a sec.
It tells me meeting is now streaming live on Facebook.
Yeah, great. So welcome everyone to this JOSPT Asks live stream. My name is Claire Ardern. I'm the Editor-in-Chief of the JOSPT. And it's my really great pleasure to welcome Professor Lynn Snyder McClure to this JOSPT Asks live stream, everything you wanted to know on ACL injury and management and return to play. Welcome, Lynn.
Thanks, Claire. It's great to be trying this out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And we apologize for the couple of glitches in the last few minutes. So we promise that we'll do our best to answer as many questions as we can in the next hour. The idea is that today's session is really about connecting us all as a community. We're all going through a really tough time at the moment. We're all feeling, I think, a bit disconnected from our work, from our loved ones. And I think we hope this is a really great way to get our really vibrant community together, and they get the opportunity to ask you and have answered some really great questions.
That's terrific. Yeah, it is. It is very disorienting. Everybody being sort of locked away in their little pods, but we're all doing the right thing by staying apart. So.
Absolutely.
And you guys can all check how many times I touch my face during this.
And many of our community will have either met you in person, Lynn, or they will have had their work influenced by some of the fantastic research that you've conducted, clinical research in your career. So it's really wonderful to be able to launch this JOSPT Asks stream with you. So thanks for making the time.
Oh yeah, you're welcome.
I want to start by acknowledging the frontline health workers who are working so incredibly hard to protect our community and treat our community through this really tough time. So I want to extend our gratitude to them. I also want to send a special shout out to our friends in Spain and in Italy in particular. We're really thinking of you. And we're also really thinking of the students in our community who have really, who are going through a tough time, who are adapting in incredibly inspirational ways to new ways of learning and teaching, and who may have had their clinical practices interrupted through this coronavirus pandemic.
Yes.
So we're thinking of you too, and hopefully this is a fun way to break up the learning that you're doing right now.
Absolutely.
So let's get into our questions. I think we should start with some questions about managing ACL injury.
Sure.
So some of the questions that have come through on the Slido app. So if you want to post a question, go to slido.com, enter the event code ACL, and you'll be able to post your question, or you'll be able to vote up questions that you want answered. So we've got some questions here about who needs surgery and who doesn't. How do you make that decision? What are you considering, Lynn?
That is a super charged question, right? And it's one that almost doesn't get asked here in the US because the management is nearly always right to surgery. For I have an ACL tear, I'm going to have surgery no matter what. If I'm a 60-year-old who occasionally runs or a 14-year-old soccer player. So what our management algorithm, which is one that we've tested and been reporting on in the Delaware Oslo ACL cohort now for more than a decade, really involves a shared decision-making paradigm with our patients. So we bring our patients in preoperatively and we get their knees quiet, so they have full range of motion, no swelling, good quad control. And then we do some preoperative progressive neuromuscular and strength training. And during that time period, we are discussing the options of return to complete a competitive season, prolonged non-operative treatment, like just choosing non-op as an option, and then surgery, and then obviously the different varieties of surgical treatments that you can do. So with that paradigm, these patients actually get a chance. Oh, also the other things that we talk about during that time are the actual outcomes of surgery, which are, especially if you're very active, you're going back to level 1 sports, is, you can look at about a 30% re-injury rate, right? So that it's not a cinch that you're going to have surgery and go back to sport, be playing at exactly the same level. As your research was really one of the first that came out and gave us the real scoop on how many people do well. I think it's around half. Is that correct? So
yeah, around that.
Around that. So we give them that information, and then they make their own decisions in conjunction with their surgeon. And if it's a young, a child or an adolescent, in conjunction with their families and potentially coaches, things like that. And our results, we just finished up the 5-year data analysis, and one of the things that we see is these patients are all still very active at 5 years, 90+% of them, no matter which arm they choose of the algorithm. And it's actually really, I don't know, it's kind of invigorating. So you asked me about what tests we do, right? And so one of the things that we do at the end of that, mini prehab period that we do is we do pretty much the same tests that we do when we go to a return to play battery. We measure their quad strength. We do single leg hop tests, 4 of them, and then we give them some self-report questionnaires. So if these folks do well on those, we would consider them returning to sport or to complete a competitive season. Right? They have to,
okay.
So that's the potential coper, right?
Okay, so let's pick up on this idea of the COPA, because one of the questions that came through on Slido was, what is a COPA? How do you define a COPA? And you've written, I think you were probably one of the authors who coined that term in the ACL world. So can you describe what you mean by COPA?
Yes, so we define a coper as someone, it is actually like a retrospective definition, right? You have to say someone who has returned to full activity for a year without an ACL and without re-injury. So early on, it's trying to figure out who's a coper, who could become one, who are the best candidates. And those candidates are really the people who have good dynamic stability as we measure them with these series of tests, right? They have good quad control, they're not swollen, their knee range of motion is great. They do well with this neuromuscular training, and their hop tests are terrific. And then but one of the things that we figured out is that the non-copers, the people who early on, with just this, we do 10 sessions of this progressive neuromuscular and strength training, and about half of the non-copers convert to potential copers just over those 10 sessions. And then it turns out, this was the paper that my postdoc, Louise Toma, who's now at University of North Carolina, her paper last year, that showed that the persistent non-copers, rather than doing better with surgery, they still do worse. So they may be the ones who actually need even more rehab before they have surgery, because they're not doing well no matter what.
And is this training program that you're doing, the 10 sessions of strength and neuromuscular training, are you calling that prehabilitation, or is prehabilitation something different? Because we hear a lot, I think, about prehabilitation. And one of the questions that we got was, what is it, and sort of how does it fit into a rehab program?
I would put it into two boxes. The sort of the typical prehab that we think about with ACLs is get the knee quiet so they can have surgery, right? Don't have them go in with a swollen knee that especially lacks knee extension. But once you get to the quiet knee, one of the things that we've shown is these additional 10